Please welcome James and Roger Deakins. Hello.
Hello.
How long has it been since you've been in Atlanta?
Last night, you mean?
Like before, because you were here for
prisoners, yeah.
Was that the last time you visited?
Yes.
Wow. Any changes to the city you've noticed?
More traffic?
Exactly. That's what I was hoping you were going to say. So I want to start with you, James, if that's okay. I know you got your start in a film lab, and you eventually moved to script supervising for many years. And so I was going to ask you, was moving into the cinematography world a big change for you?
Not really, because I had the visual, I had worked with cinematographers in the lab, and so had been looking at film for a long time. And then when you're a script supervisor, you're also working fairly closely with the cinematographer, because you kind of whisper in their ear, shouldn't they be looking left, before you bring it up to the director. So yeah, it wasn't such a big switch, and also because I hear it all the time at home, so.
Roger, I want to ask you this. There is this sort of famous story that when you first applied to film school, the National Film School in England, that you actually got denied when you first applied.
Yeah. I tried to get a job as a beach photographer once too, and I got denied that as well. So.
Wow. Curious though, was there a moment after that where you thought maybe, okay, like maybe I'll go do some art or some photography or something else other than film?
No.
Yeah.
No, because I got rejected, but then I was at art college at the time. I went back to art college and I thought, sod it, I'm going to go and ask why they rejected me. So I got on a train and went to the South Bank where they were based and talked to the head of the film school and asked him why I didn't get a place.
Love that. What did they say that now? I mean, they probably are shooting themselves in the foot now for not accepting.
No, I mean, the point was they wanted people that had experience for the first year, because it was a big investment by the Labour government, and they wanted people that had some experience would come in and really start the film school off to make it a good start, so they could kind of, showpiece the school as being a success. So yeah. I quite understand it. I was out of art college and I was a bit of a mess, really.
But didn't they tell you to come back and try again?
No, they said I would get a place the next year, basically. As I was going out, Colin didn't, who was the head, but other guys said, just reply next year, you'll get in.
Yeah. I have to ask this question just because I'm a huge music fan. So I know that early in your career you were doing music videos and music documentaries. I feel like a lot of great filmmakers get their start in music videos for some reason. I feel like that's a common story. But I was wondering, how did you get involved with doing that?
Well, it just sort of expanded in the 80s, and I started off working with friends doing second camera on concerts like Clash and people like that. And then, I don't know, people just asked me to start shooting, pop promos, as they were called then, And I did concerts. I did a number of concerts, so I guess that led to doing specific pop promos. I didn't do a huge number, but I did some, great ones. I did Sexual Healing with Marvin Gaye out in LA. That was the first time I went to America. Or came to America. We are in America, yeah. And, I did Herbie Hancock's Rocket with Godley and Cream and a few things like that. I did a few Meatloaf ones, which I really enjoyed. And, I did concert footage one time. One time I filmed Muddy Waters, B.B. King and Chuck Berry on the stage the same day. It was an afternoon concert in London, and I was right there with Chuck Berry and B.B. King and Muddy Waters. It was like a dream come true.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to know too, because you did some work, you filmed this like around the world race.
It was a yacht race, yeah. I mean, nobody else wanted to do it. Well, no, actually, I think Chris Medges had been offered it, and he didn't want to do it at that time. He was moving into drama, and I heard about it, and somehow got an interview with a producer at the television studio that wanted to make the film, and I convinced them, because I was from Torquay, from a seaside town. I convinced them, South Devon's where Drake, Raleigh, all the great seamen came from, so I was your man, but I'd never been in a yacht in my life, But it was a great chance to go out and, shoot a documentary. There was myself and a sound recordist, and, we had to crew the boat, and, because it was a racing yacht, we had to be part of the crew but make a film at the same time.
And it was kind of tough because you didn't see your dailies often, right?
No, it was like horrible. Yeah, of course you don't see dailies. No, you away for like 6. Well, I think the longest leg was 8 odd weeks or something. Across the Pacific and round Cape Horn and up to Rio. So it's quite a long leg, and you're filming, and you don't know your dailies. Obviously, we got to Brazil and sent the dailies in. So.
And it was like continuous travel for like a very long period of time, or did you come home in between legs? Or?
Hell no.
Yeah.
We were in one of the smaller yachts too, so we were always last. So we would get into port, and then the race would start up again like a week or two later. Whereas the leading yachts were there for weeks and weeks. We were only there for a short time.
Wow.
We came in next to last, but it was okay. It was just it was amazing to have done the trip,
Yeah.
So it was just basically we stopped at Cape Town, Auckland, and Rio. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, and that's probably a good segue into the book a little bit, because I know there's photographs from that trip that's included in your book. Here's the book. So this was your first book, if I'm not mistaken, and it was published, only a couple years ago by Damiani, which is this Italian. They do like kind of high art, photo books and whatnot, and it's gorgeous. Like their catalog is very gorgeous, and I think your book fits in perfectly with it. What was the process of putting the book together? I mean, I don't want to ask how many photographs you had to choose from for the book. I'm sure there were so many, but just did you have a hard time choosing what was going in the book? Like, what was the process like?
I don't actually take many photographs. I mean, there weren't that many more
Okay.
that I keep. You know what I mean? I kind of like, I take a photograph. Like, I took one today, actually, I really like. And I keep them. And so when it wasn't that many when we came to do the book, was it? I mean, it was James basically got it together with our agent and found Damiani. But you really pushed to do it during lockdown, COVID.
We did a lot through Zoom, and we had just done a podcast with Alex Webb, who is a well-known still photographer, and he told us, the worst part is the layout. You should hire someone from outside. It's really terrible. It's really terrible. Really scared us. But they were great. I mean, we had some conversations, and there were some photos that, didn't, we pulled out, then we put other ones in. They wanted the Happy Birthday Jesus out, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you go back and forth. But it was really a pleasurable experience.
Yeah.
But as I say, I mean, as I said in the front of the book, I'm not a photographer. They're just my sketches. I'm a cinematographer, but in my free time, sometimes I get a chance to go out and take pictures. And I thought, well, we'll put them together in a book.
And the publisher came back to me, after we had done the book and we were in the final stages, and said, all the distributors keep asking, can we have more behind the scenes? Because we don't have any real behind the scenes. And that's what they wanted from the book. And Roger was adamant, no, that it should be just photographs.
Yeah. I like that it's not, to be honest. I think it's gorgeous, and it's sold out like, 9? There's been 9 pressings of it, or printings of it, so you won in the end.
We showed them.
You did. Yeah, I love the book so much. I mean, there's so much of it is, so much of the photography comes from Southwest England, where you're from.
Yeah, I mean, these photographs are from like early 1970s, 71, 72. No, 70, 71, when I was working in North Devon, starting a kind of historical record. They wanted a photographic record of the rural life in North Devon, so some of the photographs are for that time, all that long ago.
I'm curious, I'm assuming that you prefer shooting in black and white than color, because it feels like all the photos are black and white.
Yeah.
And so when you shoot, on your own, you won't shoot in color. You just usually use black and white film.
I used to use black and white film stock. Now I shoot digital, and for a while I was using a colored digital camera, but now I've got a monochrome camera as well. So I'm
It's
just
easy
slap
to
my
make
wrist.
them
I'm not
black
going to
and
do color. What?
It's easy to make them black and white.
Oh yeah. But I like color, but I grew up with black and white. I mean, the photographers I really admired, and the imagery I really admired was black and white. I think in black and white.
And also, when we were putting the book together, there were so many black and whites, it just didn't seem to make sense to go into color and then go back to black and white.
Yeah. I was curious, do you have any favorite photographers that, you just have loved over the years that, might or might not have influenced your work?
Well, the early photographers work I admired when I was a kid at school, where, like everybody from Julia Margaret Cameron and Dorothy Lang and Bill Brandt, huge number. But when I was at art college, actually was a photographer who basically was a first street photographer. He used to photograph the Notting Hill area, northwest London and stuff. His name was Roger Main, and I guess he was the one that I kind of inspired me to work with a stills camera, yeah.
Yeah. I've heard you talk recently, yesterday when you were in Atlanta doing some talks about how your photography is kind of like a retreat from the film set world, right? Like, it's just kind of you and your camera, sort of less collaborative. And
Less.
Maybe,
It's not collaborative.
Right. And maybe a literal escape from the set sometimes?
Well, a bit. I mean, like that, well, both these photographs, obviously the same location, but on different days. And one was when we were shooting Sicario, and at the end of a shooting day, we shut down because these storms were coming through. So I got in the car and drove about 50 miles to this place where I knew, waiting for that shot, So, yeah, I hope it's just my way of kind of like relaxing at the end of a shooting day,
Go stand in the cold and the rain waiting for that shot. Yeah, that's
Yeah, how lucky can you get,
Do you think you'd ever publish again? Do you want to do more?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to, yeah. I mean, I've been taking more photographs, I think, the last few years, than I have for a long time, so.
Yeah, that's great. I really want to move into the podcast, selfishly, because I love the podcast so much. Available wherever you get podcasts, by the way. I've heard you talk about the idea of the podcast. You kind of came up with it pre-pandemic, right? But that, obviously, I think once the world shut down, you were able to kind of lean into it a little bit more. What made you want to start a podcast to begin with?
Well, we were doing a lot of publicity for 1917 right before, and we would do these Q&As, and then afterwards we would have people come up to us and they would ask us questions, and they were oftentimes the same question. So I said to Roger, well, what if we make a podcast and answer these questions? Because we kind of do that on the website. And Roger looked at me and said, what's a podcast? I didn't really know much more than he did,
right.
But so that was sort of the way we started it, but maybe we're just chatty people or something, but it ended up being more of a conversation. And someone wrote me in the beginning, someone that knew us, and we have a big dining room table, and we would have these huge dinners. I kind of like to cook, but like with 16 people, and there'd be cinematographers and other people in the business, and he had been to a lot of these dinners. He said, it's like I'm eavesdropping on one of these dinner conversations, and that became kind of a guiding light to us. It's a conversation, and let it go wherever it goes. And it sort of took off on its own, and we are naturally curious, so that helps a lot.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that part of what I love about it. Oh, by the way, I have to ask. This is a photo from your book.
Yeah,
Was
yeah.
that your dog?
No,
No, it was just a dog.
it was a
No,
dog.
we were we were together that day.
Yeah.
We were walking on the beach, and somebody threw a stick off the promenade, and the dog went after it. Simple as that.
You know, it was really funny, though. We were somewhere, and someone came up to us and said, "How many dogs did you throw off to get that shot?"
Did he fall far when that
He
happened?
jumped. It's about 25 feet. Yeah, but he was fine. He did it a few times. That wasn't the first time he did it.
He lived.
Professional.
The dog jumped down, and I got one shot, but it wasn't very good. And then I just waited, hoping that the owner would throw another stick at the dog, and it did. And we were standing there, and the dog looked at us. So, I mean, it's just a lucky shot, right?
I hope he lived forever. That's amazing. But what I love about the podcast is that it feels very inclusive when it comes to crew, because, I listen to a lot of film podcasts, and, it seems to be very star heavy and, actors and directors mostly. But I love that in your podcast you're talking to, like location managers and like video playback operators. I mean, these are people that don't really have the opportunity to kind of come out from behind the shadows a lot and talk about their careers. So, I mean, was that kind of part of the plan? I know that you talked about having these dinners and having conversations with people, but, just knowingly going to people,
Well, I think that we so believe that making a film is a collaborative process,
Yes.
and that everybody adds to it. So, yeah, it was pretty... We did do it on purpose. We thought, well, let's get as many departments as we can. And we did a camera trainee, and I was a little worried. I thought, would we have enough to talk about? And it was really interesting to us.
I think it is too, just from an outsider's perspective. I mean, again, it's like, part of the business that I don't personally know much about usually, and so I just love that. But I want to ask you, James, because I heard that you do all the production and editing for it.
I do.
She was doing an episode today, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, one went up today, I noticed, yeah. I mean, as somebody who, has been traditionally very terrible at those things for my podcast, I'm in awe of that, actually. And considering that you publish it every week and you have guests every week, I imagine, and it sounds great, I mean, I imagine it just takes a considerable amount of work. How do you balance that with all of your other things?
Some weeks not so well, but I think that I forgot what I was going to say. Well, that's great. So I'm really good at this. I think it was a huge learning process for me because I've been visual for so long, and for me to understand what a wave pattern was took a long time. But now I can look at a wave pattern and know what the word is, because I've spent way too much time, with sound. But it was a lockdown, so who else was going to do it? And then it was also a little bit of a control issue too, because when you get someone to be in a conversation, you have to protect them too, because they may tell a story that you would tell at a dinner table, but you shouldn't publish.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah, the editing of it is probably intense sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Well, it sounds great. If you haven't heard it, it's really fantastic. I encourage everybody to subscribe. So let's talk a little bit about the movie that we're going to watch tonight.
Yes.
The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. I'm curious if either of you, were you well versed in the kind of mythology of Jesse James and the James Gang before you started the film?
Oh, well, very definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I love history, period. But I mean, especially early American history. I'm a sucker for all that.
Yeah. I imagine you probably read the book that it was based off of.
It's a beautiful book.
Yeah, beautiful book. It was really, actually, the book was really influential to the whole tone of the film, you know, because it is like a poem, you know, it's like a poem about a vanishing world, really.
Was that research, had it challenged your kind of previously held notions of Jesse James? And
A little
No,
bit.
I mean, a little bit, but I
yeah.
mean, there had been, before this film, there had been a number of kind of revisionist books about Jesse James and who he really was, you know, rather than the myth, you know.
To be honest, after seeing the film for the first time when I saw it in 2007, I didn't really know. I had seen the Sam Fuller movie, I Shot Jesse James, but I hadn't really known much about him, and so it made me curious to, you know, go to that rabbit hole too. So I had heard that when you were approached by the director, Andrew Dominic, about working on this film, that he had this kind of very specific visual style, right? Obviously, looking at this still right here. And that essentially kind of communicated those ideas to you kind of via still photographs, right? And movie stills from the Terrence Malick movie Days of Heaven and things like that?
No, that's not at all true. I don't know where that's from. No, I'm serious.
Wow.
He never mentioned, and I only found out later that he'd actually been doing second unit with Terry Malick. I didn't know that at the time we shot this.
But he didn't communicate to you sort of what he wanted the film to look like with the
Yes,
photographs.
but that was, but not in the sense of he wanted Terry Malick or anything.
Yeah.
We all, Richard Hoover, the production designer, myself and Andrew, we all brought images into the room, and we all sort of looked at different images and possibilities, and Andrew had a very definite idea of the way he wanted it. For instance, he wanted all the characters basically to be dressed in black. He wanted all the horses to be black. He wanted a certain tone to the whole film.
Right.
And we looked at some photographs or existing photographs of Jesse James in the morgue, for instance, and he wanted to kind of replicate that kind of feeling, which is why we kind of made up some specific lenses for the shoot. But I don't remember him ever talking about any other movie, frankly.
Right.
But you did have that long hallway.
By the time we came to shoot, the production office hallway, you could walk down it and just feel the film as you walk down it.
They were all posted
different
on the
images.
wall.
But I mean, some of the images might have been, quite a few were Andrew's Polaroids, and some of them had faded. I remember he had one of just a big oak tree, and it had faded around the edges, and it was brown, and the image was slightly blurred. And we didn't replicate that, but it was just a very good reference, the kind of feel of the film, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I wanted to ask if that was that kind of a unique way of communicating that style? I mean, do other directors do photography like that, or?
Yeah, I mean, some directors will actually when they're pitching a script to the studio, they'll have a thick book of images that they've got, a lookbook of the whole movie that they'll provide the studio with a script. So sometimes a director will approach us and we'll have that as a reference of the feeling that they're trying to give, you know.
Yeah.
Denny would do that on some things, yeah.
Yeah. I know we've got some folks in the audience that haven't seen the film before, so I don't really necessarily, I kind of want to dance around what it's about, even though I have to say the title is kind of a spoiler.
You kind of know what happens to Jesse, so, you know, come on.
But it is the journey and not the destination, if you know what I mean. I'd kind of just like to point out some moments of the film that I feel like, you know, are kind of, if you haven't seen it, it's kind of a be on the lookout for. So there's this here, this still comes from this very iconic sequence towards the beginning, I think, involving the train robbery at the beginning.
And the thing about Andrew that's different is when you're working with the director, you have to figure out what their style is, and sometimes they'll say, I want it dark, but their version of dark isn't what you would consider dark. But when Andrew said, I want it dark, he meant dark. So that was a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, this is
Dark.
like chiaroscuro on 11, you know, it's like kind of almost German expressionism type of lighting. So I'm curious, like, how was this constructed with the lighting and with, you know, the visuals?
How?
Like, there's
Well,
probably one, that's
I
probably
got
the
a
sole
big,
light here?
a big 5K par, and I stuck it on top of the train, and I had it on a dimmer, and I was in radio control with the dimmer board operator on the train, so as it was coming nearer, I had to dim it down. So, and I was looking through the lens and saying, go down a bit, because I didn't want the lamp to flare the lens, and obviously as it comes nearer, basically it's too bright as it comes, so we had to do all that. The lamp itself is a little electric bulb in that lamp because a flame wouldn't have been enough for the effect.
Also, one of the things too was that the train was not as big as what Andrew
Yeah,
wanted, so you want to hide that.
Andrew was really upset that we had to shoot with this train on this track. There was a train in Edmonton, but it's at a roundabout junction, a roadway roundabout junction. There's a big old train, and he wanted that train. But that would have been a beggar gauge railway, and you'd have had to get it. There was no way. On our budget, there was no way. So we had this rather little train
Very
on
dinky.
this heritage kind of western town site in Edmonton, Canada. And we had to make it feel imposing. And Andrew was, he was really upset. And I said, I think we can do it. I think it'd be okay. We just won't light it.
There's another scene. So this is the scene that I think people connect to the Terrence Malick Days of Heaven, and now you say
there's a lot of grass, and there's a
Yeah.
church, and 2 people sitting.
Yeah,
I mean, but the camera's not doing that, so I'm not sure.
yeah. But you're saying now that this was sort of not communicated to you, but then later what he had met with Malick at a certain point. Is that what you were saying? That
I found out later he actually had, I think he's been on a second unit or something with Terry.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we know Terry. I haven't seen him for ages, but we used to see him a few times.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not that, but I don't remember any connection with this film and Terry Malick before we shot it.
Well, I mean, regardless, it's a gorgeous shot. I just love this part of the film too, because it's kind of in a key moment of certainly Bob. You know, there's also this other. I want to talk about this next scene or this shot because there's a visual technique that y'all used throughout the film where the edges of the frame appear kind of like a blurry vignette, you know, like a kind of like a pinhole camera image or something. And I heard that you had actually created a lens that would do this effect, and it's now called the Deakinizer.
Yes.
Yeah, we made up 3 different lenses actually because of different lengths, and I mean, years and years previously, I'd done something. I'd taken a front element off a stills camera lens. I took a stills camera lens apart, an old lens I didn't really want. Took the front element off and put it in front of a shooting lens, film shooting lens, to get a particular effect like this. So when talking with Andrew, he was talking about that shot in the morgue of Jesse James, the sort of pinhole camera effect. He said, well, let's try and do something like that. So we basically went to the rental house we always get our cameras from, and you know, they basically replicated that idea that I had from years and years ago. It's a bit hard looking at a still image of it because it's so bad quality in a way, but when it moves, I think it's quite wonderful, yeah.
And originally the plan was to use it more frequently, but the studio wasn't so sure about it. So
Studio saw dailies, yeah, and they said, I don't think you should. I think you should always do a version with a normal lens. And we actually pulled back a bit, and I remember actually when seeing the cut with Andrew, we both went, damn, we should have used it more. It's very effective.
Yeah. I feel like you would know best in this case. Well, and I also wanted to talk about, you know, the initial reaction that this film got when it was first released, right? Because, I mean, I think it's kind of remarkable that it was Andrew Dominic's, I think it was like his second feature.
Yeah, he done this film Chopper in Australia,
Chopper.
which is pretty remarkable, but nothing at all like like this. Yeah.
Yeah. And in spite of that being this being a second film, he managed to get like so many great actors, and you got Team Deakins obviously, but yet when the film was released, it didn't really do too well at the box office, and that's surprising to me, obviously because you have such major talent behind it.
It wasn't really promoted, though, that much, and it wasn't a normal Warner Brothers film at the time, but they had a deal with Brad, and Brad really wanted to make this movie first, so they went through with it. But I think there wasn't a lot of promotion, and it took a long time to cut, and they weren't, very happy at the end.
Yeah. And there was also kind of reviews that said, it's a film that should be shown on the History Channel or the National Geographic because it's got voiceover and it's kind of poetic, and I don't think film critics were used to seeing a film of that kind of nature, I think it was kind of sad.
And it also shows a different side of Jesse, where he's this American icon that everybody knows a certain way, and he's very melancholy in this, which I think is wonderful, but it's different, and I didn't think it went over that well.
And it's interesting because I feel like now, I feel like the film is kind of getting its flowers in a way. I think it's been kind of critically reappraised, and there's certainly a lot of people who are seeing the film and they're loving it and trying to get Criterion to release it, which we've talked about. But I'm just curious if that's surprising to you, that kind of it's kind of gotten this new life and that people are really interested in celebrating it.
I think by the time we worked on this, we were kind of used to this kind of
right.
film. Shawshank Redemption.
Was the same thing.
Yeah, I bet.
We have a lot of movies like that.
Yeah, it's funny how they're discovered later.
Yeah, some of the best movies are, right? I also have to say, this movie came out the same year as No Country for Old Men.
Yeah. Well, that's because it took so long to cut.
Yeah.
It should have come out the year before.
Right, which is, hey, what a great year for you guys. I can't even believe it, but I have to ask a very simple question about that, though. Do you prefer cold and dark or dry and hot when it comes to shooting?
I think that's a weird question. I like visualizing stories.
Yeah.
I don't get the question.
Okay. I was just saying, being on set for so long and having to be in this kind of environment versus the No Country for Old Men environment being just different, like Texas,
Well, they both come with, the cold comes with the fact that you better have another set of lenses, because if you go from the outside to the inside, you're going to get condensation, and the hot generally comes with a lot of dust, so it means you've got to clean the camera all the time. That's how I think of it.
But just in terms of visually, no, because I don't think I prefer any one place to another. No, it's the story. I remember, I mentioned Shawshank earlier. After Shawshank Redemption, Tim went on to do Dead Man Walking, and he said to me, you might not want to do this. It's another prison movie. And I said, but what do you want it to look like? Because the director had asked me to shoot a film, and they wanted it to look just like Shawshank Redemption.
A different film,
and I didn't. I walked out the door. And Tim said, well, you might not want this either, because I want it to be really bland. I almost want it to look ugly, but just I want it to look just really bland. And I thought, that's great.
Yeah.
No, because it was right for the story of his take on the story. It was absolutely right. You wouldn't do something like Shawshank, which is a bit poetic.
Yeah. I'll do one more question, and then we'll turn it to the audience, if that's okay. I know you split time between England and the States, and I was wondering, do you go out to see new movies often? Is there?
Well, we haven't recently.
We see a lot of movies. We haven't been,
we
sadly, to the cinema so much lately. But
before we do a podcast episode, we see a lot of movies for each, where we try and see their first and their middle, and so we end up seeing a lot of movies, good and bad, to understand the person. But because it's kind of homework for us, we don't oftentimes go out because we got to get it done, write up our notes. You
I
know.
hear you.
We're boring. That's what it is.
Well, I'd like to turn it over to the audience if they have anything that they want to ask. I wasn't sure if there was a person in the, if there was a microphone. Okay, I'm just gonna, I can't really see, but right here, the hat?
I think one of the many great strengths of your work is your lighting, and I was wondering, how do you view the relationship between yourself and your gaffer, and what do you value most in that relationship?
Friendship. Somebody I can get on with on the set. I mean, obviously, you want a gaffer that has technical knowledge, because I don't even know what electricity is. But I usually know exactly what lights I want. I mean, I know lights. So I don't need somebody so much to tell me how to achieve a certain look. I mean, I have that, but I need somebody I need a friend on set, really, that can relate to the kind of thing that I'm looking for and watch my back, frankly, yeah.
When we were shooting in Australia and we were shooting with Sean, who we had never worked with before, he came up to me and said, I got to ask you a question, because Roger's very specific about his lights, but his instinct was saying to bring extra stuff in, and we didn't have a big budget. And I said, you got to believe him. You got to trust him that he's not going to use more than he says he wants to use. And that was hard for him, because he was used to assuming that things would change a great deal, but they kind of don't with you. But you also like a gaffer that has opinions and
Absolutely.
and collaborates.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let's see, trying to get some equity in the crowd here. Glasses, is that you right here with the hoodie? Yeah, many hoodies, sorry.
Hello. What advice do you have in regards to longevity in a career in filmmaking?
Keep fit. I don't know, keep fit and
Keep some sort of,
passion.
keep passion and find a way to work out your frustrations, like run or something, because it can get kind of frustrating
Yeah,
at
keep a
times.
perspective, I think is
Yeah.
important. I don't know, really. I mean, some people find it easy like us, and some people don't, I guess.
I'm gonna, in the back, I think I see, I don't know if I can see that. There's a beard and a hat. Sorry.
All right.
That could be anyone.
That narrows it down.
Yes, sir. Thank you for taking my question. Based on your experience as a storyteller, whether personally experience or by observation of others, do you believe that sobriety is a sure pathway to better art?
Depends what you mean by sobriety.
Well, normally everyone on the set is sober when we're working.
Yeah, normally, not always. I mean, I wasn't a film where...
Talking about England, but yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't a film where we were on a set and the production designer came in completely drunk. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a good idea, but you do hear about Sam Peckinpah being quite alcoholic, but his films are quite wonderful, so maybe, I don't know, it works for some people, I don't know.
But normally when we're working, yeah, it's sober.
Thank you.
Let's see. Actually, you. Hi.
No.
Rejections? How do you mean rejection? Being fired? Because I have been, yeah.
Twice.
Well, maybe more than that, but maybe the other one I resigned. I'm not sure. Badly.
Well, no.
Still hurts.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going now.
Yes. Yeah, when you want to shoot it a certain way and.
Oh yeah, but I mean, you're only there to give your ideas. I mean, director's a director, otherwise you'd be directing. I don't have that problem with that. Where I had a problem with when I've come in problems on films where I've been fired or I did leave a film, was I didn't feel there was any point me being there. You know, I mean, if it's not a collaboration, and you're not kind of contributing to the thing, you're not part of a team, then I don't really see any point being there, you know. And maybe that sounds, I don't know, I'd rather go fishing. I like fishing.
But it can be frustrating when you think it should be shot a certain way, and like if they say, oh, there's not enough time, and you know there's enough time to do it. That happens, and that can be frustrating.
It's pretty rare, actually. It's pretty rare for us, isn't it?
Well, because we talk them into it, yeah, but.
Yes. No, I mean, usually it's about pre-production and getting to know each other and getting trust, you know, and that's what's really crucial. So hopefully you don't get on a set and have conflict. I mean, sure, there's plenty of times where I've suggested something to Joel and Ethan, and it's, well, no, maybe not. And that's fine, you know, but at least they've taken your idea and thought about it, and that's all you can hope for. I mean, again, where I've fallen foul, it's like, I've not had that prep. I've not got to know the director, and you're on the set, and it's like, what am I doing here, you know?
Well, and it's also you choose your jobs carefully. You talk to the director and to begin with to see if you're on the same, wavelength. Because if you're both trying to do different movies, that's not good at all. Was that helpful at all? We seem to have gone all around, but.
Let's see. Can we do like somebody over in the back, maybe? Yeah, yeah.
Hi. Was there ever a moment where you like seriously doubted pursuing a career in film? And if there was, like, how did you get over that?
Oh, a few times, right?
Yeah, gave up a few times, that's for sure. No, you always have, don't they, this popular thing now, imposter syndrome they call it. I mean, yeah, you always have that, I do.
But there also have been times where after a movie you've really thought about just giving it up.
Yeah.
And then something comes up.
Earlier on, yeah, absolutely. Definitely. I mean, I was living in London at one point, and I came back from a film, and I said, that's it. I put my house on the market and moved back to Devon, where I was brought up, and yeah, I was going to rethink what I was going to do.
But then a good movie came up, and you went off.
Let's do a couple more. I see somebody like really waving over there. I think it's, yes, that
What's
hand.
he wearing?
There, right? Yep, that's it. Yeah, hat. One, two. Uh-oh.
I want to know more about your process about projects or directors. I know you work with Coen Brothers and John Carson, but you only work with Andrew Dominic this one time. I just wonder, like, what do you think when you're picking a project, and
Well, it's always about the script, but I mean, like I've said a million times, if it was Joel and Ethan doing something, if they were doing the phone book, I would do it. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, and Denis, I mean, it depends, but otherwise, it's really about the script. I mean, you just got to relate to it, you know. I mean, I always think if I pay and go and see the film in the movie theater, then I'd probably work on it, you know.
It's about the script, and also we do meet with the director, and if the director is collaborative, I mean, if the director just wants technicians on the set to tell them where to be and what to do and not want a collaboration in it, then it's not really worth the time.
Can we do the hat now? I'm sorry, since you're good? Okay, you got it. Cool.
So I am a film and TV person. I'm a first AC, aka focus puller, and there's a lot of us that I think are a little bit hurt after this year because of AI and all this like talk of automating a lot of these artistic practices that go into making a film. So my question is, what do you have to say to the people who wonder if focus pullers have their days numbered as far as like their jobs are concerned, and operators as far as their jobs are concerned, but just like the artistic element of shooting and pulling focus and changing filters and all that is concerned, I think a lot of us are kind of a little downtrodden after this year, and it would be really nice to hear from somebody that we respect, what your thought process is on that and why it's important.
Yeah, but I mean, things have always changed. And I remember going to film school, and a number of people said, well, why are you going to film school? Television's going to kill movies. That was 1972. So, I mean, yeah, it's going to change. I mean, films have always been changing, sound and color. And yeah, I mean, this might seem like a really big change. It may or may not be, but I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't really know.
I can't imagine AI pulling focus, though, because, you know, we work with Andy, and it's such a... What?
Actually, I'm not sure. I don't know, but... I really don't know. I don't think anybody knows.
Really? I can't see it. I mean, when you think how Andy pulls focus, he's with the actor.
I don't think there's any you know, it's about human beings doing it. Yeah. I mean, that would be me, but I mean, you know, the world changes. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I mean, what do people want to? How do they want to be entertained or informed? You know, it's all going to change. I mean, I don't think we can put our heads in the sand and say everybody's always going to be making movies like this one.
Yeah, shoot everything against green screen then.
Well, I wouldn't, but
yeah. Well, so then you wouldn't want to work with an AI focus.
No, I wouldn't. No,
well,
but I'm not saying
that,
I'm not. But
to the person who's a focus puller.
I wouldn't, but I don't think we can deny that the way people are getting their entertainment and information is changing, and whether. And I think you've just got to embrace the change. I mean, you look at digital capture and steady cams and everything else. Technology changes.
Yeah, it does, but
there is no substitute for a human being pulling focus on a shot with me, with me on the camera, panning it, and in relationship with the actor with a dolly grip, pushing me, and the actor's doing something different, and there's a little dance on set. Mm-hmm. It's like a dance. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, it's absolute joy. But yeah, whether that is the way, you know, films are going to be made into the future, I do not know.
Keep doing it until they tell us not to.
Exactly.
Let's do like one more. I don't know. Can we go again in the back maybe? Like there's a hand maybe in the back row or maybe second to the last row? Yeah? Sorry. lot of hands.
Hey, so I want to ask, there's obviously the filmography of the movies you guys have made is gorgeous, but it's incredibly immersive. Like, I feel like you guys never sacrifice spectacle for the sake of story. What do you attribute that to? I feel like even other great cinematographers, sometimes there's a little bit of flash over the idea of narrative. What do you think that, why do you think that is over the course of all the stuff you've made?
It's a relationship with the directors, really. I mean, yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. I feel the same about a lot of movies. I think there's too much flash. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the films I grew up with, I love Robert Bresson, you know. You don't move the camera very much.
It's always keeping the story in mind, too.
Yeah.
Not thinking shot first, but thinking, what are we trying to say at this point?
Yeah,
And
but I
what
think
shot
that
would
comes from
tell
a
it more.
collaboration with the director, doesn't it? You know.
Sure, Roger. No,
Yeah,
I-
no, you know what I mean. No, it's interesting actually. I did a film. The first film I did with Sam, right, Jarhead. We discussed the sort of style of it and decided we would shoot everything handheld and just relate to the actors. We just started shooting without really rehearsing. And every now and again, one of us would say, well, maybe this shot we should do something on a dolly or a crane, or maybe we would do something a little bit special. And the other would say, no. You know, we would pull each other back from doing anything ostentatious. So, I mean, I think there's such a danger of like, oh, that looks beautiful. Oh, why don't we do it at sunset? Oh, why don't we have a shaft of yellow light? Or why don't we put on a wider lens to see more of the sky or something? And it's easy to get carried away with beauty instead of concentrating on the story, really.
Well, on that note, I think the questions have been great. Thank you so much, James and Roger, for this.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful. Before we go, the crew wants to do a photo, right? Yeah, so we're gonna get the two of you in front of the audience for tonight, and we're gonna take a little photo. Then we're gonna have an intermission and then the movie. So hang tight.